That was beautiful, wasn't it? Thank you, whoever put those together. Wonderful. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Back with you again. Haven't been here for, I don't know, maybe a year or something like that. And it's great to be amongst God's people on a beautiful Sabbath morning. I saw something new this morning, which some of you may not know even if you attend here, but there's an amazing little bit of physics that happens in this church. I don't know who designed the projection screen system over here, but it taught me something very interesting. And you may not realise, but there is a projector at the base of the screen, but it's not facing the screen, it's facing away from the screen. Does anybody know how it gets back to the screen? With a mirror. That's right, you've seen it. But the interesting thing is that the image on the mirror is smaller than the one on the screen. So what I learned is that if you had multiple mirrors that got bigger and bigger and bigger, you can actually, in a very small space, project from the lens out onto a very big screen. So whoever set that up, thank you. It taught me something very interesting about physics. I often wonder when we get to heaven, one of the things that I would really love to see is the creation story. I would love to see how God created the world. And you know how light travels at, light travels at 186,000 miles per second, which is 310,000 kilometers per second. I wonder, and I don't know the physics behind this, but let's say this is the Earth. The microphone here is the Earth being created 6,000 years ago. So if we go out to heaven, and let's say we go 6,000 light years away, and we turn around and look back, if we were able to get there faster than the speed of light, and then we look back, then the light from creation would only just be reaching 6,000 light years away. Do you see what I'm saying there? Yeah, okay. So if we had a pair of binoculars, really, really, really strong binoculars, would we be able to look back and see creation? And I've struggled with this because I don't know whether the light reaching the binoculars is the same. Anyway, I can't really explain it because I don't really understand it. But then I thought, God's got that sorted because he's going to create a new heavens and a new earth, and we're going to get to see that. So I don't know whether we'll ever see the original creation. I'm sure we'll be told about it, and maybe we will see it. But we will see the creation of a new heavens and a new earth, which is a beautiful thing. So thank you for the reminder of that, whoever set that up there this morning. Physics is some beautiful laws that God has put in place, and we'll understand them more and more as we go through history. Okay, I'm using some new technology here again this morning too. Let me just see which one of these hit. Here we go. Make sure that's on the screen. Yes, there we go. Rick Hoyt was his name, the little baby in the picture on the left there. Rick Hoyt was born on January 10, 1962 in Massachusetts in the United States. But sadly, he was diagnosed as a quadriplegic and also with cerebral palsy because when he was born, the umbilical cord had caught around his neck and there'd been a lack of oxygen for a long enough period of time for him to be severely affected by it. Many of the doctors encouraged the Hoyt family, the mum and dad, to just institutionalise him and just let someone else care for him because he will never be what you want him to be. But they held on in hope, and they noticed that as Rick went through the first weeks and months of his life, that his eyes would follow them around the room. And they thought, hey, there's something there. There's something. He's recognising us. He's following movement. And they used to take him to the Boston Children's Hospital, and there was a doctor there who said, just treat Rick like any other child. And so they did. And they moved forward in hope. But it was a very, very tough journey because there wasn't a lot of the responses that they had hoped for in their child, that we all hope for in our children as they grow. At the age of 11, Rick was fitted with a computer, and you can see him there with his computer. And through that computer, he was able to communicate with his parents and with others around him as he learnt how to use the computer. And they realised that he was actually quite intelligent. And long story short, he actually, in 1993, he graduated from Boston University with a degree in special education, which is pretty incredible. And there's probably no better special education teacher than someone who has had to go through special education in the way that Rick did. But one of the amazing things about Rick's life was that in 1977, at the age of 15, a classmate in Rick's class had an accident and became paralysed. And in that process, and because of that, it was a great expense on the family of his classmate, with new equipment and training and medical care, etc. And so Rick said to his dad, "Dad, I want to go in the fun run that they're doing at school to raise money for my paralysed friend." And Rick's dad, who was a lieutenant in the Marine Corps at the time and not a runner, and realised that when Rick said he wanted to go in the fun run, that means, "Dad, you need to push me in the fun run," he went, "Oh, I don't know if I can do 5Ks. I think it was about a 3-mile fun run over there in the US. But he said, "Okay, son, we'll do it." He was 36 years old at the time, and Rick was 15. They did the race to raise the money, and you can probably see the picture there on the left. And at the end of the race, Rick said to his father, now his father's name was Dick, so they're both Richard, so Rick and Dick, Richard and Richard. Rick said to his father, he said, "Dad, when I'm running, it feels like I'm not handicapped." Well, you can imagine what that did to his father's heart after raising this young boy for 15 years, trying to make life as normal as possible for him. And then the little boy says, at 15, he says, "Dad, when I'm running, I don't feel like I'm handicapped." Well, on hearing this, the father, Dick, started running and started training while Rick was at school. And then after school, he would take that wheelchair and he would push him and they would go places. And they started to enter into some races. Well, since that day, in 1977, the Hoyts have competed together in various athletic endeavours and marathons, in Ironman marathons. For those of you who know what that is, it's a marathon length in 3 different sports. And when they are, you can see some pictures here, when they're riding on the bike, Dad's pedalling and Rick's out the front in a special seat. When they are running, he's in a wheelchair and Dad's pushing. And when they are swimming, Rick is in a boat and Dad's out the front swimming and pulling the boat and Rick for a marathon length Ironman. Incredible. As of March 2016, the Hoyts had competed in 1,130 endurance events, including 72 marathons, 6 Ironman triathlons. They had run the Boston Marathon 32 times, their favourite race. They biked and ran across the United States in 1992, finishing 6,011 kilometres in 45 days. That's incredible. Incredible dedication. Greater love has no man than this, than to lay down his life for his friends. We read that this morning, Carleen, in the Sabbath school lesson. It's so true. Can you imagine what the father, in this case Dick, gave up for his son? The dreams that he might have had. He gave time, he gave his talents, he gave his treasure, he gave his life. Because when Rick was running, he didn't feel like he was handicapped. That's love. And yet, I've seen some interviews with these guys, the father and son, and when they get asked, which of you was blessed the most by the father's sacrificial giving to the son, they both point to each other. You see, as the Bible says, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And yet in this case, Rick received so much from his dad, but in that process, he gave so much. A beautiful, beautiful relationship. We're looking this morning at the 8 T's of grateful living. What are we being grateful for in our lives? There's a singer-songwriter by the name of Josh Wilson, And some of you may have heard this song. It's called Dream Small. I'm just going to read you some of the lyrics from this. It's a mother singing songs about the Lord. It's a daddy spending family time the world says he cannot afford. These simple moments change the world. It's a pastor at a tiny little church, 40 years of loving on the broken and the hurt. These simple moments change the world. Dream small. Don't buy the lie that you've got to do it all. Just let Jesus use you where you are, one day at a time. Live well, loving God and others as yourself. Find little ways where only you can help. And with his great love, a tiny rock can make a giant fall. Dream small. It's visiting the widow down the street, or dancing on a Friday with your friend with special needs. These simple moments change the world. Of course, there's nothing wrong with bigger dreams. Just don't miss the minutes on your way to bigger things, because these simple moments change the world. Keep loving, keep serving, keep listening, keep learning, keep praying, keep hoping, keep seeking, keep searching. Add up the small things and watch them grow bigger. The God who does all things makes oceans from rivers. Dream small. Don't buy the lie you've got to do it all. Just let Jesus use you where you are, one day at a time. Live well, loving God and others as yourself. Find little ways where only you can help. With his great love, a tiny rock can make a giant fall. Yes, 5 loaves and 2 fish can feed them all. So dream small, dream small. It's a little bit countercultural, isn't it, where we're told to dream big and to aim for the stars and all of that. And yes, that's important too. And it's biblical to do those things, but it's also biblical and it's also important to be where we are, to dream small, to live each moment and make a difference in what seem to be the small things in life. This gentleman's name is Albert Schweitzer. I don't know a great deal about him, but I'm told online that he was a theologian, an organist, a writer, a humanitarian, a philosopher, and the one that I knew him for, a physician. He was a doctor in Africa, gave day after day, minute after minute, you could say, dreaming small in Africa, doing great things by compounding little things together. He was asked to do a closing or a graduation speech at a university in Germany. And one of the things that he said as he looked out across all of those graduates who were about to go on and live the rest of their lives and achieve great things and achieve a whole lot of different things, each one in their own way, he said this. He said, "I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I do know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who will have sought and found how to serve." It's beautiful here as I walk through the church. In the hall here behind this wall, I see all of is it God's closet? Is that what it's called? God's wardrobe. God's wardrobe. I can tell by the number of boxes and the amount of clothes and all the rest of it that a lot of you have found the joy of serving. And that's what Schweitzer was saying. It's in the service that we get the joy. In Genesis chapter 12, we see an incredible secret of the universe. And I say of the universe, we could say that this is a secret of giving, but it's actually a secret of nature. It's a secret within all creation. God said to Abram at the time, he said, "I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." What's the universal principle there? It's that we are blessed to be a blessing. And in blessing, we are blessed. And we see it right across the universe. And of course, through Abraham came Israel, and to us today, as spiritual Israel, this same principle applies. Biblical stewardship is not just about money. It's about whole of life giving. We see it in Genesis, we see it in the life of the Hoyts, and we see it in our church members around us. We know that it's more than just money. It's about whole of life giving. Jesus himself mentioned that when he was talking to the Pharisees about tithes and offerings. And he said to them, yes, keep doing that. Keep doing your tithes and offerings and do them carefully and prayerfully. But you ought to have done them without leaving the others undone. Christ knew that it's about whole of life, not just the specific details. Whole of life giving. I hope that in the next few minutes I can encourage you and inspire you to consider ways in your life where you can expand your giving, expand how you are using the blessings that God has given you to bless other people around you. The foundation of stewardship, something that I've only learned recently, the foundation of stewardship, the heart of stewardship is not money. It's actually love. The foundation of stewardship is love. And I say that because faithful stewardship is loving God and others with all that we have and all that we are. That's what when you burn it down and boil it down, that's what comes out the bottom. Faithful stewardship is loving God and others with all that we have and all that we are. Now, some of those things are measurable. We could measure the amount of money that we're giving or the amount of time, but much of faithful stewardship is actually immeasurable, unmeasurable. It's things that we just do, and as Christ lives in us, it's who we are and what we become. In 1 Corinthians 10, Paul talks about this. He says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. It's that whole of life living and giving for the glory of God. Now, I know some of you spend a lot of time right in that situation where that lady is there, making food. And I know Melinda, when we got married, one of the most challenging things she said was that she would invest so much time in making a meal for either just the two of us or for extended family, and then just like that, it's gone. And before you know it, where are you? You're back in the kitchen and you're doing it again 3 times a day. It's interesting that talent that God gives to us, men or women, whoever, children, whoever it is, when we're in the kitchen making healthy food, is actually an incredible talent. I came across this and look at it in light of what Paul says there. You know, whatever you do it all for the glory of God. I came across this quote. God places a high estimate on those who do faithful service in preparing wholesome, palatable food. The one who understands the art of properly preparing food and who uses this knowledge is worthy of higher commendation than those engaged in any other line of work. This talent should be regarded as equal in value to 10 talents. For its right use has much to do with keeping the human organism in health. Because so inseparably connected with life and health, it is the most valuable of all gifts. Amen? Isn't that incredible? It's not, and that's not about tithes or offerings or serving in the local food bank or whatever it is. That's just about the daily small things. We can call it the daily grind. The getting up, for preparing the breakfast, then the lunch, then the dinner, day after day, year after year, for a whole lifetime. But Ellen White, under inspiration, says there, it's actually 10 talents. Do it well. Do it all for the glory of God. Whole of life giving. The last few years, well, prior to travel restrictions, I spent a lot of time traveling around the world speaking on faith and finance, the relationship between money and spirituality. And we often talk of stewardship, and there are 3 T's of stewardship that we have been preaching and teaching for a long time. We have to be faithful stewards or faithful managers of the things that God gives us, and they are categorized as our time, our talents, and our treasures. The 3 T's of stewardship. But as I have travelled around and talked to people and studied in God's Word and looked at how stewardship is actually about whole of life giving, I found not just 3 T's of stewardship, but I found a 4th T and a 5th T and a 6th T. And then when I was in Arizona doing some talks, I spoke to Navajo Indians and Apache Indians over there, and they taught me a 7th T. And so then I thought, well, hey, I've got the perfect set now. I've got the full set of stewardship because there's 7. And then I found another one. So now I've got these 8 T's of grateful living, or 8 T's of stewardship. And I would like to share them with you briefly. We're going to run through them. These 8 T's of grateful living. And let's just see if this little video works for us. Here we go.
Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. What a beautiful way to live. Thankfully and gratefully, always. The Bible is full of stories of people who lived gratefully, and it's not just the superheroes. Even when Jonah was running from God and was caught in the belly of a fish, he prayed, "I, with shouts of grateful praise, will sacrifice to you." And the outcast Samaritan leper, when he saw that he was healed, he turned back and with a loud voice glorified God and fell down on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Sure, God may not have saved us from a terrible disease or from rotting inside a fish, but we know that in God we live and move and have our being. We can be grateful to God for every breath and every heartbeat. Grateful living is about whole of life giving. And there are many benefits. Ellen White wrote that nothing tends more to promote health of body and of soul than does a spirit of gratitude and praise. And if there is anyone who should be continually grateful, it is the Christian. We've been saved, so let's notify our faces. Let's live gratefully as we experience the joy of whole of life giving. God invites us to be faithful managers of everything He gives us. An easy way to remember His gifts is by the 8 T's of grateful living. Let's accept God's invitation to prayerfully manage and be grateful for our time, talents, testimony, treasure, temple, territory, tribe, and His truth. That's whole of life, grateful living. Welcome to a whole new level of Christ-centered, abundant living.
Okay. All right, so there we go. The 8 T's of grateful living. Recently, we had 2 young ladies staying with us while they were recording at a studio here in Ocean Shores, I think it was, doing some music recording. Very talented young ladies, Anna Beeden and Kemi Ogendi. And they stayed with us for the week. And towards the end of the week, they said, "Oh, we aren't giving you anything to stay here. What can we give you?" And we're like, "No, nothing at all. You're welcome to stay here while you're recording." And they said, "No, we'll think of something." And that week I had been working on that video clip and some other things around this grateful living theme. In fact, there's 8 sermons on those 8 different T's. So if you talk to your pastor or the elders, you may want to next year go through an 8-part series on grateful living. It's a beautiful, eye-opening journey into the benefits of grateful living in our lives. And anyway, so these young ladies at the end of the week, they were packing their car and they went, "Oh no, we still haven't done anything." And they said, can we do a jingle for you for your 8 T's of grateful living sermons? And I said, "Yeah, sure." I have no idea how you're going to do that. I'm not musical. And they said, "Okay, we'll do it." So they went back into their bedroom with their iPhone and came out about 20 minutes later with probably a 30-second jingle little song about the 8 T's of grateful living. And I want to play it to you because it's actually really catchy. And if you do the 8-part series next year, by the end of the 2 months, you're going to be, oh yeah, I really like this little catchy little jingle. So let's see if I can get it playing here.
Time, talents, testimony, treasure, temple, territory, with my tribe, in truth we abide. Time, talents, testimony, treasure, temple, territory, with my tribe, in truth we abide. Gratefulness, it's how we wanna live. Gratefulness, so abundant and free, so abundant and free.
God gives some people talents, doesn't he? You can do that with an iPhone in a guest room in someone's house. It's incredible. But that's it. They're using their talents for God's glory. They're being grateful for the talents that God has given them and giving them back to him. So let's very quickly run through these 8 T's. Time. Dedicating time every day to God and his work. Talents. Using my God-given abilities to serve him. Testimony. Faithfully sharing what God is doing in my life. Temple. Caring for my mind and body for God's service. Treasure. Tithes, offerings, donations and investments. Territory. Caring for my land and the environment. Tribe. Caring for family at home, church and worldwide. And truth. Faithfully protecting and sharing God's word. The 8 T's of grateful living. Some of you will have heard of the canary in the coal mine. And it's probably an unusual thing to put into a sermon at this point, but let me explain. Back in many years ago, when they were down mining underground, mining for coal, let's say, they would sometimes break through a part of an underground cave or something, or leaking out of the rock would be carbon monoxide, or possibly other deadly poisons as well, poisonous gases. Carbon monoxide, as many of you will know, is an odorless, colourless, but deadly gas. And so you can't smell it, you don't know it's there, you just die. And they didn't know what to do to stop this problem of miners dying whenever there was a monoxide leak. But they found out that canaries are actually very susceptible to carbon monoxide poisoning. And so they would take a canary down there into the coal mine, and I was told that the canary would actually sing in the dark, or maybe they had a light there for it, I don't know. But the canary would sing and sing and sing. And if the canary stopped singing, they knew that there was too much carbon monoxide, and they would all rush out of the mine, and the canary would save their lives. So the canary in the coal mine was the identifier of the things in their life that were causing them problems. The good news is that these days the little canaries don't die in the coal mines. We have electronic canaries that they're actually silent until there is carbon monoxide, and then they let off a siren and everybody gets out. But you know, in my life, when I look at my 8 T's of grateful living, there are 2 of those T's that for me are like the canary in my coal mine. They're the things that give me a warning and say, Julian, something's out of balance. Something's wrong. You need to look around, wake up and save yourself. Work out what the problem is that you've got yourself into. So of those 8 T's, 2 of them are the canaries. Time and treasure. And they're very easy to listen to measure. If I want to know how I'm spending my time, I just look at my calendar. If I want to look at how I'm spending my treasure, I just look at my bank statements. And by looking at those 2 things, I can see whether I am living for God or for something else. By looking at my time and my treasure. One of the questions that I ask myself, and I encourage you to ask yourself, and maybe even as a family worship, get together and ask this: did Jesus die for the things that we are living for? In your personal life, did Jesus die for the things that you're living for? Because it's so easy in this world to get distracted or attracted by the things of the world and start living for them instead of the things that God calls us to live for, the things that Jesus died for. Another way of looking at it, you could ask this question: if Jesus were living in our neighbour's house all this year, would his calendar and bank statements look like ours? Yeah, it's something to think through, isn't it? You can see here the 8 T's of grateful living. Maybe there's one of those that you've been thinking about as I've been sharing this message that the Holy Spirit has placed on your heart and said, I really need to use that T more for God, or I need to be more faithful in caring for that T. It could be the environment, it could be family, it could be your health, it could be sharing your testimony, it could be God's truth, it could be any number of them. But I encourage you to think about it carefully and prayerfully. One of the things that we can do, and we do this as a family still, even though our boys are in their 20s, when we have opening and closing Sabbath, we take the time to say, what was the high of your week if it's opening Sabbath, or what was the high of your Sabbath if it's closing Sabbath? And it's really interesting as we each go around and share what our high was of the week or of the Sabbath, very interesting to see that many times our high has been when we were being grateful for something, when we were giving something, or being grateful for something that we had received. Grateful living. And I think God created us that way. I think he created us in a way that we are fueled by loving, by giving, also by receiving. But there's something about living gratefully that gives us a high. And some of you may have come across the word oxytocin, where when we do something good, something kind to somebody, our brain releases a thing called oxytocin, and it feels really good. I was in Byron Bay. We'd only just moved up here probably 18 months ago, and it was only in the first couple of months, and I was paying for my fuel at the servo on the way into town near Belongil Beach. There was a servo on the right. And I filled up my fuel in the ute, and I walked inside, and there was a queue where you have to pay for your fuel. And I was about the fourth in the line, and there was a guy standing in front of me, and we were just waiting to pay, and he decided that he needed to get a drink out of the fridge that he wanted as well. And so he left the line and went over and got the drink and then came back to the line. Now, when he was coming back to the line, I could see that he was going to go in behind me, even though he had started in front of me. And I said, no, buddy, come back in here. You know, we haven't moved anywhere. The line's still here. Just jump back in. Yeah, no problem at all. And he said, no. And anyway, we had this little mini argument, and I ended up convincing him, and he stood in front of me in the line. And then next person, and finally it was his turn. And he got up to the counter, and the guy said to him, Bowser number? And he said, yeah, Bowser number 2, whatever it was. And then he turned around and he said, what's your Bowser number? And I went, oh, no, you don't. No, you don't. But he said, no, I insist. And I said, okay, it's Bowser 3, let's say. And he paid for my fuel. And that was back in the day when it was only about $70 to fill up your car. That was good old days, last year. Anyway, he paid for it. And of course, I had nothing else to do then. I'm just standing there in the line. And then we walked out together and we started to chat. And he said, I said, oh, you didn't have to do that. And, we had one of those little arguments that you have. And he said, the world's a better place because I did that. Because somebody did that for me once. and I'm just passing it on to you. And it feels good, doesn't it? And I tell you what, we both walked out of that place with so much oxytocin, I just about blacked out of his kindness towards me. But one thing he said to me, he said, Julian, just pass it on. Just pass it on. And so I was in Bangalore a couple of weeks later, and there's a little shop there that sells health food products and things, and they've got two cash registers, two little counters where you pay, sort of right beside each other. And there was a bit of a queue, it was busy, and anyway, I forget the whole scenario, but there was a young boy standing there in his school uniform, and he had 4 ice blocks and a few drinks or whatever it was that he was buying. And he did the similar thing to me in that he stepped aside. We both could have been first to the counter, but he stepped aside and said, no, after you. And I thought, here it is. Here's the opportunity. I got that oxytocin flashback. And so I said to the girl at the front, I said, yeah, I just have these, thanks. And this young man here, if he can just put his up and I'll pay for them as well. And so we went through the same thing, had our little argument, but I was bigger and older, and so I won, and I paid for all his stuff. And the oxytocin in the room was just thick, because as it turns out, you don't have to be the one doing the kindness to get the oxytocin. You can be receiving the kindness, or the two girls on the checkouts who witnessed the kindness were also having a high. All because I had passed on something that had been given to me. It cost me nothing. Why did it cost me nothing? Because I'd already saved $70 at the last place when the other guy had done it for me, and I was just passing it on. And so as the young man and I were leaving the store for him to go back and give his free ice blocks to his siblings or whatever it was in the car, I just said to him, because he was, thank you. I said, no problem at all. I said, you just make sure that you pass that kindness on to somebody else. And he said, I will. And now I don't know where that's going to go. And I've still got some change in my pocket for the rest of the $70 to pass on. But there's something about living gratefully and generously that makes the world a better place. In Deuteronomy, we're told to encourage these laws of God, these laws of the universe that God has created and put in place, to pass them on to our families. Here you can see in Deuteronomy 6 that we were studying this morning, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Whole of life giving. Let's encourage our children to do the same. In the book Ministry of Healing, we have this beautiful quote by Ellen White. Nothing tends more to promote health of body and of soul than does a spirit of gratitude and praise. Interesting, the connection between the mental spirit of gratitude and praise and even the physical well-being. We need to count our blessings. That's really what it comes back to, doesn't it? The old song, count your many blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings every day because it's good for us. I want to finish with a short story. The story's told of a place in New York where there's quite a lot of poverty at the time in this suburb. And a man drove in there one day in a very, very fancy red sports car, very, very expensive fancy red sports car. And he parked it alongside the footpath and he hopped out of the car and he went into the shop to buy some things. Well, while he was in the shop, a little boy from the community walked past and he saw this sports car. And he'd never seen anything like it. It was the most incredible symphony in steel that he'd ever seen. It was just the most beautifully engineered motor vehicle that he'd ever come across. And he was just standing there looking at this car when the man, let's call him Peter came out of the shop carrying his groceries or shopping, whatever he had bought in that shop. And he walked up to the car and he did the beep beep and opened it and went to put his groceries in. And the little boy who was just standing there looking at this car, and he said, Mister, is this your car? And he said, yes, son, it is. My brother gave it to me. And the little boy, his mouth dropped open, his eyes went wide, and he said, oh, mister, he said, I just wish. And Peter said to him, oh, I know what you're going to say, son. You're going to say that you wish you had a brother like that. And the little boy said, oh, no, sir, no, sir. I wish I could be a brother like that. And that's it in a nutshell. Living gratefully, living generously, and wanting to be a brother like that, a father like that, a mother like that, a community member like that, a citizen like that. And that's my prayer for you this morning, is that you'll be encouraged to go out and be a person like that to somebody, wherever you are, wherever God places you. Go through those 8 T's of grateful living and find a way to be someone like that.